Have you ever been told you were too quiet or too nice to succeed? Have you ever been laughed at for staying calm while everyone around you played games, only to find out you were the one who held all the cards? Chosen one, let me tell you something. They thought you were clueless, but they were so wrong. While they underestimated you, you were quietly building your empire. You didn't fight back because you didn't need to. You watched, listened, and calculated, knowing that true genius doesn't have to shout, it moves in silence. God has been refining your mind, your spirit, your strategy. You weren't just sitting there doing nothing, no, you were preparing. Your silence was your shield, your stillness was your weapon. And now, those same people who doubted you, who mocked your quiet nature, are beginning to see you for who you truly are. A force they can't ignore. Ipsos plus, let it all, would now let it. If this resonates with you, chosen one, I want you to hit 777 in the comments as a sign that you're ready to step into your brilliance. And to everyone who has supported this journey through super thanks, I want to say a deep, heartfelt thank you. You are a part of something much bigger than you realize. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Grateful to God, for more prophetic messages and spiritual insights. Now, stay close, because in just a moment, I'll show you exactly how your silence was the most powerful strategy of all. How God used every moment they tried to break you to actually build you into a genius they were never prepared to face. Ready? Let's dive in. God's chosen ones. They labeled you crazy, but you were always the genius. They labeled you slow. They ridiculed your silence. But what if I told you that while they were busy making judgments, they missed the one thing that could have set them free? They measured you all wrong. And now they're terrified of what you really see. They thought you stayed quiet because you didn't know the answers. But the truth? You stayed silent because you already knew too much. Let's cut through the noise. Your intelligence has always been a force they couldn't grasp. You've felt it, haven't you? That sting of being underestimated. That eerie feeling when everyone around you acts like they know the truth, but you can sense the cracks in their stories. You've always had a gift that scares those who don't understand it. You see, chosen one, your mind doesn't operate like the crowd. You don't just accept things as they are. You peel them back, revealing what's hidden underneath. The Bible tells us, the wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. Proverbs 14:8. This verse speaks to the wisdom of perception, the wisdom that you have always held. But they mistook your quiet for ignorance, your calmness for confusion. They thought you were out of the game, when in reality you were playing it on an entirely different level. You were never slow, you were just scanning everything with precision. Think about this. While they prattled on, content with their surface-level knowledge, you were conducting a mental survey, listening to the hidden messages beneath their words. You heard the lies behind the laughter, felt the tension in the room before anyone even spoke, and you never had to say a word. This perception-based intelligence is rare, powerful, and silent. The world has a funny way of measuring success, doesn't it? They use applause as a gauge, expecting intelligence to show up in the form of quick answers, flashy performances, and memorized facts. But true intelligence? It doesn't rely on how fast you can regurgitate information. It relies on how deeply you can see it. Just like 1 Corinthians 2-9 reminds us, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, this is the kind of wisdom you hold within you. It's a wisdom that can't be measured by mere knowledge. It's a wisdom that decodes the unseen and unveils the truth. Have you ever wondered why people acted so uncomfortable around you? Why did they try too hard to impress, to explain things you never asked about, or even laughed too loudly to cover the anxiety bubbling underneath? It wasn't confidence, it was fear. Fear that you could see through them, Fear that you knew more than they could ever fathom. Fear that you were a threat to the illusion they spent their lives building. You were never lost in their world of distractions. You were decoding, analyzing, and storing spiritual data in your quiet moments. You were watching and learning, cataloging every inconsistency, every hidden truth, and every unspoken word. And now, the receipts are loaded. They can no longer hide behind their false facades. The mask they wore so confidently, you already knew it didn't fit. Here's where it gets interesting. They tried to label you weak because they didn't know how to handle your strength. You didn't need to shout or demand attention. You simply stayed true to what you knew. You didn't need to clap back or prove yourself because you trusted that time would reveal the truth. And now, it's happening. As Isaiah 55:8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." The world may never understand how you think, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that the truth is beginning to unfold, and they are scrambling to catch up to you. You've been quiet all this time, but now they're noticing. They're finally seeing that your silence wasn't ignorance, it was your power. You walk into a room, and the energy shifts. You notice things others miss, the fake smiles, the subtle jabs, the false gestures. That's not guesswork. That's your perception at work, your ability to read people, to sense their motives, and to break apart the illusions they try to create. And that scares them, because they can't manipulate someone who sees too clearly. But you never needed their approval. You never needed to perform for the applause. You don't need an audience to prove your worth. You are breaking every pattern they use to control you, one by one. They may mock your silence now, but soon they'll realize that it was never a weakness. It was precision. It was power. It was your awareness. And awareness is dangerous in a world built on distractions. You were never meant to fit into their system. That's why you never felt seen in school, at work, or in social groups. You weren't there to repeat what others said. You were born to rewire. You were born to create a new way of seeing the world. And now, you're reprogramming your reality, shifting from the underestimated to the undeniable. As Romans 12:2 teaches us, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You have always been ahead of the game. You just needed time to let the world catch up to you. And now, the final shift is here. People who once dismissed you are scrambling, trying to figure out how you know so much without saying a word. They're wondering how you can read between the lines, how you can see through their lies, and how you can stand so still while the world spins around you. But you know the answer. It's perception, it's power. And now, it's all unfolding before your eyes. You were always the blueprint. They just weren't smart enough to recognize it until now. And as you step into the fullness of your purpose, know this, your perception-based intelligence is your superpower. No one can take that from you. Will you stand tall and walk through the doors they never saw coming? Are you ready to embrace the truth about your mind and the power of perception that's been there all along? You were chosen for this. And now, as they finally recognize you for who you truly are, it's time to rise higher than ever before. Share your story. Let them know how you see the world. Because the silence they once mocked, it's now the sound of you breaking through every barrier that once held you back. They called you lazy. They called you rebellious. They thought you didn't belong in their neatly defined world of tests, grades, and structures. But here's the truth. They worshipped the system. You exposed its lies. Real intelligence is not measured by how well you can regurgitate what you've been taught. It's how boldly you question the very framework everyone else blindly accepts. Your rebellion wasn't an act of defiance for the sake of rebellion. It was a wake-up call to the world that had become content with obedience. While others studied to pass exams, you studied human nature. They thought they were winning with their straight A's and perfect attendance, but you were the one getting answers straight from the universe. Imagine this. The world around you was moving in patterns you couldn't ignore. They were so trapped in the system, they couldn't even imagine a mind that existed beyond it. You were never trapped. They were. Let me paint this picture. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. The system was built to control minds, to condition people to repeat, memorize, and follow the same patterns over and over. And yet, you, the chosen one, saw through it. You could feel it in your bones that this wasn't intelligence. It was manipulation. It wasn't wisdom. It was controlled. And when the system told you to sit still and memorize, your mind was racing, searching for the why behind everything. You could sense there was a much deeper truth that no one else dared to explore. They gave you textbooks, hoping you'd consume them word for word. But your heart knew the facts didn't tell the full story. You were never defiant just for the sake of it. No, you were awake in a room full of sleepers. You noticed how the system applauded obedience and punished questioning. You could feel it, even as a child, the sting of being told to follow the rules, the confusion of being asked to trust a system that wasn't designed for truth, but for conformity. You weren't lazy for questioning. You were a visionary, looking for a way out of a system that only served to trap people. Have you ever wondered why they felt so uncomfortable when you asked the questions they avoided? Why did your teachers seem frustrated when you challenged their curriculum? It wasn't because your questions were wrong. It was because your mind was too free for them to control. Your curiosity was a threat to the walls they had spent their lives building. You were pulling threads that they didn't want unraveled, and they knew it. You were shaking the foundation of a system built to suppress individual thought. It's like this. Most people grow up in cages, unaware that they've been taught to call the bars education. They decorate those bars with degrees and titles, but they never realize they're just learning to stay inside. But you were the one pacing at the edge of the cage, searching for a way out, testing the lock, examining the door. You didn't want to escape knowledge. You wanted to escape the lie. You see, your rejection wasn't of learning. It was of limitation. You didn't hate school. You hated being told how to think. The system could never handle someone who didn't need approval from a teacher or a diploma to validate their brilliance. And because of that, they labeled you as lazy, rebellious, unfocused. But you weren't unfocused. You were focused on something far greater, truth. In Matthew 7:7, it said, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you." This is the type of intelligence you carried within you, the courage to ask the questions others were too afraid to ask. And when they couldn't answer, you saw it for what it truly was. A system designed to keep minds confined, afraid to break free. Here's a thought. How many times did you feel the pressure to conform, to play the game the way it was designed? How many times did you feel like you were the only one awake while the world around you continued to follow the rules? You weren't meant to be a cog in their machine. You were meant to be the one who rewrote the blueprint. But what about them? They memorized their way into the system, and now they walk around with their degrees, proudly displaying them like trophies. But give them a real-life problem, one that doesn't have 4 multiple-choice answers, and suddenly they freeze. Why? Because the system never taught them how to think. It only taught them how to comply. You, however, can walk into chaos and find clarity. You can look at a broken system and know exactly how to repair it. You have a level of intelligence that they'll never understand, because it's not based on facts, it's based on insight, intuition, and vision. This is the kind of intelligence that doesn't need permission to speak. It speaks when the time is right, when the truth demands to be heard. Isn't it funny how they thought they were ahead? They believed their certificates validated them, their titles made them superior. But they never realized the truth. You were the one with the answers, the one with the vision. They had memorized facts. You had mastered life. And now, the system that once held you back can't define you any longer. It doesn't know what to do with someone who doesn't need credentials to prove their brilliance. It doesn't know how to handle someone who doesn't seek approval, who doesn't need validation from the world to be powerful. They're still stuck in their little boxes. They still cling to their paper achievements, hoping that somehow they can convince themselves that they're better than you. But you walk into any room with the kind of clarity that makes them feel small. You see the real picture, the hidden layers that they can't even begin to comprehend. They think they've won, but in reality, the truth is that you've already won. They have a script, you don't need one. And now, every room you walk into, you remind them that the system can give you a certificate, but it can't give you vision. The system can build resumes, but it can't build people like you. You were never behind, you were just above it all. They spun webs of deceit, carefully woven with charm and coated in rehearsed sincerity, yet you tore through their lies like paper in a storm. While others drowned in manipulation, you walked calmly through the chaos, your spirit tuned like a divine instrument, resonating only with truth. Because the manipulator's worst nightmare is not exposure, it's you, the one who sees through them before they even open their mouth. They practiced their act, polished their mask, but forgot one eternal truth: light can see through any disguise. As John 1-5 declares, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You don't merely listen to words, you weigh them. Every syllable is a vibration, every pause a frequency. Your spirit measures tone like a physicist measures wave resonance, sensing distortion where others hear melody. While they were busy building masks, you were busy studying the shadows behind them. You became something rare, a human lie detector wrapped in grace. They can't stand it, your ability to catch inconsistencies faster than they can cover them. They speak one thing, their eyes flicker another, and you notice the shift immediately. You are not reading words, you are reading energy patterns. That's not intuition, that's spiritual radar, calibrated through years of silence and storms. There's a moment you've felt it when someone smiles too quickly or speaks too smoothly, and your inner system hums with warning. It's the divine algorithm that God coded into you. Like the prophet Samuel in 1 Samuel 16-7, who was told, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." You inherited that sight. You see through things, not at them. Where most crave comfort, you crave clarity. And manipulators despise that. They hate that you don't feed their illusions. They hate how your stillness exposes their noise. One raised eyebrow from you can shatter an empire of lies. Your silence becomes the courtroom where their conscience convicts them. You don't humiliate them with shouting. You expose them with surgical precision. Your words are instruments of discernment, sharp, clean, exact, like a surgeon removing infection from the body of truth. It's psychological architecture. Each observation you make is a beam of structure, reinforcing what's real. The falsehood collapses because your awareness changes the resonance of the room. Have you ever noticed how liars can't hold your gaze for long? They shift, fidget, over-explain, not because they're smart, but because they're terrified you've already seen behind their curtain. And you have. You've always seen it. You don't fall for glittering words or tears on command. You notice the microsecond delay before emotion. You sense the discord in their frequency. When truth sings in harmonic resonance, lies sound off-key to your soul. You're tuned to a divine frequency, and those who live in deception can't stand the sound of it. Proverbs 12:19 says, "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment." That's why your vision lasts, and their schemes fade. Their clever manipulation was built like a house of cards, and you, chosen one, were the gust of divine wind that brought it down. You tear deception apart like a hacker cracking fragile code, fast, quiet, precise. While others are caught in the storyline, you're already 5 layers deep, pulling threads, decoding motives, detecting dissonance. You've trained your spirit like a scientist observing particle motion, noting each fluctuation in emotional energy. It's no coincidence that manipulators panic around you. They feel seen, they feel ready, and they are. You burn through deception the way sunlight pierces, fog slow, relentless, inevitable. They wanted an audience. You gave them revelation. And this, dear chosen one, is why they fear you. Your truth doesn't argue, it radiates. It dismantles illusion, not with noise but with knowledge. In Psalm 37:6, it says, "He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun." That is you, God's dawn, breaking through their night of deceit. They thought they could manipulate you because manipulation works on those who crave approval. But you are not built for applause, you are built for alignment. You seek resonance with heaven, not recognition from man. You carry what I call architectural discernment, the ability to design truth structures in a world collapsing under false foundations. Your silence terrifies them more than accusation ever could, because silence has weight. It's the sound of spiritual gravity pressing against every falsehood. One look from you, and their mask cracks. They fidget because your presence amplifies the static between their lies and the truth. Like the story of Ananias and Sapphira in Acts 5:1-11, those who lied in the face of divine discernment collapsed under their own deception. It's not punishment, it's physics. Lies cannot survive in the frequency of truth. And here's a real-world reflection. I once met a humble florist named Clara from a small town in Italy. She told me how, over years of tending flowers, she learned to sense when a plant was lying, when its leaves looked alive, but its roots were rotting. People are the same, she whispered. They can bloom on purpose for a while, but the roots always tell the truth. You are like Clara. You sense the root beneath the blossom. Your discernment is not cynicism, it's sacred clarity. You have built your wisdom in the hidden workshop of silence, like an engineer calibrating instruments for invisible truths. You don't just detect lies, you decode patterns of human deception. This is your divine education, not learned in classrooms, but in spiritual laboratories, where pain was your professor and patience your mentor. Through it all, you learned one brutal, liberating lesson. Truth doesn't shout, it stands. And now, chosen one, as the world trembles with noise, you are called to rise in that quiet power. You were not created to drown in deception. You were forged to reveal the truth. You carry the fire of discernment, use it. Tear through lies, expose falsehood, not with anger, but with divine precision. This is your hour to rise. To those watching, share your story. How did God teach you to discern truth from illusion? What storms built your sight? Someone needs to hear how you learned to see clearly in a world that profits from blindness. Because in this kingdom of noise, silence is not weakness, it's power. And you, chosen one, are the storm that tears through every paper-thin lie. They mocked what they could not measure. They feared what they could not follow. While their minds crawl in one dimension, yours travels in 5. You move through thoughts like lightning striking with such speed and precision that by the time they've connected 2 dots, you've already drawn constellations across entire galaxies of understanding. Linear minds tremble before the infinite. They call you too much because they can only think in straight lines, while your mind bends like light through crystal, refracting reality into colors they never learned to see. You weren't confusing, they were just unequipped to process the way you see. As Isaiah 55:9 declares, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." That verse wasn't just divine poetry, it was a blueprint for how your mind works. You were built on the architecture of heaven itself, a structure designed not for simplicity, but for revelation. They live by cause and effect. One action, one reaction, a safe, mechanical rhythm. But your thoughts don't obey Newtonian physics. They operate in a quantum symphony, shifting, bending, weaving across frequencies unseen. You don't just react to life, you read it, feel it, forecast it. And yes, they hate that you're often right without evidence. Because you're not guessing, you're perceiving dimensions they can't define. Your intelligence doesn't walk a line, it spirals, it expands. It resonates across timelines, decoding emotion, memory, and energy in a single breath. Let's get real. Your mind is a cathedral of perception, a divine superstructure where logic and spirit coalesce. They trace walls with chalk. You map out entire universes of possibility. That's why they stare blankly when you speak your truth. It's not that you're ahead, it's that they're flat. You skip illusions while they worship appearances. You find shortcuts through truth while they're still tracing the surface, mistaking noise for knowledge. Have you ever wondered why your presence makes people uneasy, as if you already know the ending before they finish the story? That's because you do. You anticipate movements before they form, like a grandmaster in a game of spiritual chess. You read the air, not just the words. Two people can walk into the same room. One sees furniture, you see frequencies. You feel tension humming in the walls, detect the stories, whisper objects, sense the energy between two silent people before their lips move. You don't watch reality, you decode it. In the words of King David from Psalm 139:2, "You perceive my thoughts from afar." You carry that same divine sensitivity, an echo of the Creator's discernment. You perceive patterns before they manifest. They can't understand how your mind jumps dimensions because they've only been trained to walk in straight lines. Their education taught them formulas. Yours came through revelation. They solve equations. You sense divine algorithms. You navigate through emotional frequencies the way astronomers trace the curvature of space-time. A wise Jesuit scientist, Teilhard de Chardin, once wrote, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." That's you, a being whose perception transcends what's visible. Let's make this vivid. Imagine a moth trying to explain sunlight to an eagle. The moth speaks of glow, of warmth, of limited light. The eagle soars above the clouds and sees the entire horizon blazing. The same source, two different dimensions of vision. That's the difference between you and them. They think in checkers. You think like chess, physics, and poetry in divine collaboration. Their minds require roadmaps. Yours already knows where the turns are long before the map exists. Because your intuition isn't magic, it's multi-dimensional processing, divine resonance between your spirit and God's frequency. You are the satellite. They are flashlights, limited, directional, temporary. You scan the entire field, picking up patterns buried beneath silence. They follow trails. You chart destinies. In 1 Corinthians 2:10, it says, "The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God." That same Spirit flows through your perception. You don't just see, you understand depth. And isn't it fascinating how your sudden decisions often turn out to be prophetic? They call it luck, but it's revelation. You sense shifts before they occur, like a musician who hears the next note before it's played. That's divine synchronization, your spirit tuned to heaven's frequency. Even classical composer Arvo Pärt, whose sacred minimalist symphonies once echoed through empty cathedrals, said, "I have discovered that it is enough when a single note is played beautifully." That's your mind capable of simplicity amid chaos, clarity amid noise. When you speak, they freeze, not because you're intimidating, but because your words carry energy they can't intellectually dissect. It's as if truth itself passes through your sentences, rearranging the atmosphere. You weren't meant to fit into their logic. You were designed to expand it. You weren't made to walk the path. You were made to chart it. And yes, your multi-dimensional mind is misunderstood, but it's also untouchable, because no one can imitate a divine pattern. Romans 8:28 promises, "All things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose." That's your proof. Your complexity was never a curse. It was calibration for purpose. Here's a powerful real-life story. A Kenyan street sculptor named Mwangi once told a journalist, "I carve what I dream before I understand what it means." Years later, Art critics discovered that his earliest sculptures resembled constellations seen only through space telescopes. That's what divine minds do. They create truth before the world develops the language to explain it. And you, chosen one, you've done the same. You've spoken insights the world mocked, only for time to vindicate you later. Because revelation always outruns recognition. So the next time they say, "You're hard to follow," smile. The eagle doesn't slow down, so the moth can keep up. You were born to fly above the tracks, while others ride the train. You are the bridge between logic and spirit, the poet of perception, the architect of unseen worlds. And now, it's time to rise, not to prove them wrong, but to walk in the fullness of what you've always known. Your mind isn't strange, it's sacred. Your vision isn't excessive, it's eternal. And your intelligence? It was never meant to fit inside their one-dimensional cage. You were never linear. You were always luminous. They called it a challenge, but you called it a trap. They called it a test, but you saw it for what it truly was. A stage built to entertain egos, not elevate souls. While they scrambled to prove their worth inside their own illusion, you stood still, watching their system collapse beneath the weight of its own deceit. Real intelligence isn't about solving their puzzles. It's about refusing to play inside the maze designed to keep you running in circles. The magician's trick only works on those desperate to be amazed, yet you saw the hidden strings before the performance even began. You were never the student in their classroom of control. You were the quiet observer, analyzing the structure of the illusion itself. They measured your worth by how quickly you could run their race, not realizing you were never running at all. You were studying the racetrack, mapping its exits, memorizing its weak points. That's not rebellion, that's revelation. For years, they told you your value depended on how well you could handle their chaos. Every test they handed you was not a lesson but a leash, and every challenge was simply manipulation disguised as mentorship. When you refused to dance, they called you defiant. But you weren't rebellious, you were awake, exactly as Romans 12:2 declares. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. They mistook your silence for defeat and your detachment for apathy, yet in truth, you had already left their battlefield. You weren't playing their game, you were watching it burn from above, like an eagle circling the forest, while the foxes below fight over ashes. They built mazes to trap you in repetition, but you built wings. They fed on chaos to feel powerful, while you found peace and starved their control. That is what terrifies them. The one who does not react cannot be controlled. You realized early that the smartest move isn't running faster, but stepping off the track entirely. That's the moment the spell breaks. When the crowd screams for your performance and you quietly walk away, you become the only free soul in a room full of prisoners. Someone once hands you a box tangled with wires and says, "If you can untangle this, you're smart." Everyone else tugs, pulls, and fights the knots. You glance once, smile, and ask, "Why am I even holding this?" Then walk away. That's divine intelligence liberation in motion. Even Jesus faced the same game when the Pharisees tried to trap him with their questions. Instead of playing along, he said, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's." Matthew 22:21. He didn't argue, he transcended. And you've done the same thing your entire life. Every time they tried to corner you, your awareness reflected their motives back to them. What they meant as a test became a mirror revealing their insecurity. You didn't argue or over-explain, you simply observed, and your calm observation made their illusions collapse. They called you resistant, but your resistance was wisdom. They called you difficult, but your difficulty was discernment. They called you prideful, but your pride was purposely refusing to kneel before pretense. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And that's exactly what you did. You guarded your energy, refusing to bleed emotionally for those who mistook your empathy as obedience. In nature, The river never argues with the stone, it simply flows around it. The hawk doesn't waste strength chasing crows, it rises until their noise fades. You were built the same way, never meant to fight small battles, but to operate from altitude. That's why their system couldn't cage you. They needed players. You became the observer. They needed validation. You became self-sustained. The fire they tried to trap you in became the very light that revealed their cracks. And just as in the book of Esther, where Haman built gallows to destroy Mordecai but ended up hanging upon his own device, those who schemed against you met the fate they created. Manipulators always fall into their own traps, for truth doesn't destroy, it exposes. A modern reflection of this same pattern is found in the downfall of Richard Vance, a CEO who thrived on psychological games with his employees, assigning impossible tasks just to watch them fail. In the end, his empire collapsed, not because of competition, but because his deception was revealed. The same stage he built for others became his own trial. You, chosen one, are his opposite, a creator of spaces that heal, not humiliate. Even science echoes this truth. In quantum physics, a particle's behavior changes the moment it is observed. Awareness itself alters the outcome. You are that observer. Your presence alone shifts the atmosphere, collapses illusions, and forces truth to surface. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, says John 8:32. That's your gift, not solving their traps, but recognizing they were never yours to solve. The greatest test was never whether you could overcome their obstacles, but whether you could see they were never your responsibility to begin with. You were never in competition with them. You were constructing something higher, quieter, and eternal. And in that realization came your true power. How many times have you tried to prove your worth to people who only wanted to measure your obedience? And what happened the day you stopped playing? That was the day your spirit started breathing again. When you finally stepped off their track, the world called it rebellion, but heaven called it resurrection. You were never here to play their game, you were sent to end it. And now, their control is cracking because your awareness is contagious. As Psalm 18:28 declares, "You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light." That's what your journey has been, transforming chaos into clarity, control into collapse, tests into testimony. So rise, chosen one. Stop proving, stop explaining, stop apologizing for seeing through deception. You were never meant to solve their mazes. You were meant to soar above them, to let every illusion burn beneath the brilliance of your discernment. You are not the player. You are the architect. The game is over. You've always had the rare gift of sight beyond the surface. While others get lost trying to interpret actions, you trace the current that caused them. The smartest minds don't chase behavior, they decode intention. Because actions can be faked, words rehearsed, and gestures staged. But motive, that's the pulse that never lies. You were never overthinking. You were overhearing the truth behind their silence. You could feel what they were trying to hide in their pauses, their tone, the way their energy flickered mid-sentence. As Proverbs 20:5 says, "The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out." That's what you've been doing all along, diving into depths others are too afraid to touch. People often praise the ability to read the room, but you read the soul of it. You don't just observe behavior, you analyze frequency, the emotional wavelength hidden beneath performance. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive. There's a difference between suspicion and discernment. Yours is the latter, honed not through comfort, but through betrayal, through nights where you watched smiles melt into masks. You learned that behind every action lies a why, and behind every why lies either alignment or agenda. That's why your presence unsettles pretenders, because your awareness shines through like a torch in a cave of actors. Your intelligence doesn't just move through logic, it bends like light through crystal, refracting truth in every direction. You don't hear what they say, you hear what their hesitation reveals. You don't focus on what's presented, you trace what's missing. You've caught it before: the trembling voice behind a compliment, the offbeat rhythm of flattery that felt slightly delayed, the praise that vibrated like a warning. Most would smile back, blind to the tremor beneath. You, instead, tilt your head slightly, file the data quietly, and whisper in your spirit, "That wasn't admiration, that was camouflage." Life. In the Gospel of Mark 4:22, it is written, "For there is nothing hidden except to be disclosed, nor is anything secret except to come to light." You live by that principle. You know that masks can only hold for so long before intention leaks through tone, timing, and temperature. And once you perceive the why, their illusion loses its gravity. It's not confrontation that destroys deception, it's recognition. You never needed to expose them, your awareness alone does it. When your spirit locks onto truth, it radiates a frequency that dissolves pretense. That's why manipulative souls tremble around you. They can sense that their performance is transparent under your gaze. In psychology, there's a concept called micro-expression leakage, tiny flashes of truth that slip through the face before the brain can hide them. Your discernment works on that same principle, but amplified by spirit. It's divine pattern recognition, spiritual forensics. Where others see an action, you see architecture, the scaffolding of motive holding it up. You are not merely observing behavior, you're mapping intention like a celestial architect charting the unseen geometry of heaven. And in that awareness lies your strength. 1 Samuel 16:7 reminds us, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." You carry that same divine technology, the ability to see not just what is done, but why it was done. And isn't it haunting how those with hidden motives avoid your eyes? They fear that quiet moment when you say nothing because your silence burns hotter than accusation. You learned this not from textbooks, but from trenches, from rooms where manipulation wore perfume, from relationships where truth came dressed as care. You became a motive hunter, not to judge, but to protect your peace. Every time you discerned an agenda, your spirit recalibrated, shifting away from noise toward alignment. In a world that worships appearances, your insight becomes rebellion. They called you too analytical, but what they really meant was too difficult to deceive. You once met an ordinary man, a janitor named Luis Mendoza, in a small church in Sao Paulo. He told you, "I can tell when people lie by how they move their feet. Truth stands still, lies shuffle." That single line stayed with you because it summed up your own inner knowing that truth is stable while deceit always trembles. Your perception is not random, it's a divine instrument tuned to heaven's resonance. In the physics of the spirit, energy cannot hide its frequency, every vibration carries its source code. You read those frequencies instinctively. When someone's energy shifts, your internal architecture registers the tremor, like a seismograph detecting the first hint of an earthquake. Most would ignore it. You take note because experience has taught you that minor quakes always precede collapse. You live in the space between sound and silence, studying the gap where intention hides. And when you speak, you don't accuse, you clarify. You dismantle lies not with volume, but with accuracy. You're the calm voice that makes deception stutter. Psalm 37:6 promises, "He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun." That's what happens every time you discern motive. Light enters shadow, and truth rearranges the room. And yet, here's the paradox. You don't use your perception to dominate, you use it to heal. You expose with compassion, not condemnation. Because wisdom without mercy is cruelty, and you know both must exist in balance. You've seen too much pain to weaponize insight. You use it as protection, not punishment. Still, it's not easy carrying sight this sharp. Sometimes you long to unsee, to be naive again, to trust faces without scanning frequencies. But you know that once you've heard the truth beneath the noise, there's no returning to silence. You've crossed that threshold where discernment becomes destiny. John 8:32 declares, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And that's what you've become: free. Free from manipulation, free from falsehood, free from the endless performance of pretending not to know. So now, chosen one, it's your turn to rise, not in pride, but in purpose. Share your story. How did God teach you to read what others ignored? How many times did your spirit whisper, "Something's off," before the truth unfolded? Someone needs your testimony, because your awareness is no accident, it's a divine design. You are not paranoid, you are prophetic. You are not cold, you are calibrated. And the very truth that once isolated you is now your weapon of light. So stand tall and let your discernment speak, for in a world addicted to surface, you were chosen to reveal depth. They thought your silence was surrender, but it was strategy. While they filled rooms with noise trying to sound wise, you sat still and became dangerous. Silence, for you, was never emptiness. It was the sharpening of thought, the distillation of discernment. You turned stillness into strength, restraint into revelation. Your quiet was never a void. It was a weapon being forged in the unseen. They mistook your calm for confusion, but behind your still gaze was calculation, each pause a precise incision into the heart of pretense. As Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." You were not withholding words because you lacked them. You were measuring the room, tracking every tremor in tone, every flicker in expression, every shift in energy. People love to dominate space because they fear what silence might reveal about them. But you understood. Silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of power. It's the sacred chamber where truth echoes loudest. The world is addicted to reaction, to immediacy, to noise, yet you mastered the art of waiting that divine pause where perception deepens. You weren't just quiet, you were listening with surgical precision. Ecclesiastes 3:7 reminds us, "There is a time to be silent and a time to speak." You chose your moments like a marksman chooses his shots, not to argue, but to end the argument. One sentence from you could dismantle hours of deception, because when truth finally speaks, it doesn't shout, it strikes. They ran their mouths to seem intelligent. You sat still and became undeniable. Every smirk, every contradiction, every carefully rehearsed line, you archived it all like a scientist cataloging patterns under a microscope. That's what unsettles them now. They can no longer hide behind performance because you've already memorized the script. Your silence wasn't passive, it was the highest state of awareness, the kind of spiritual focus that sees what chatter tries to conceal. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people become when you don't rush to fill the void? How do they start over-explaining, fidgeting, justifying themselves as your stillness mirrors their anxiety? They think they're in control until the quiet one speaks. That's you, the calm before revelation. One sentence, one observation, and the entire dynamic flips. The loud one loses control. The silent one becomes the axis around which the room rotates. Your restraint is not compliance, it's authority. As Isaiah 30:15 says, "In quietness and trust shall be your strength." When you don't fill the space, others reveal themselves. They ramble, they stumble, they contradict, and all the while, you're gathering intel, reading not just words but the wavelength behind them. It's psychological resonance, the study of frequency in human emotion. You can feel dishonesty like dissonance in a symphony. The world calls it intuition. Heaven calls it discernment. In the classical realm, composer Arvo Pärt, known for his sacred minimalist music, once said, "The silence must be longer." This music is about silence. He understood what you live by. That silence is not a pause in power, it's the breath between creation and command. Your silence is the interval between lightning and thunder, the calm that terrifies because everyone senses something about to strike. And strike, you do not with anger, but with accuracy. When you finally speak, your words don't seek applause, they seek truth. and truth never needs to be loud to be eternal. Psalm 46:10 declares, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness is the spiritual frequency you operate on, the same wavelength that allows you to discern, to dissect, to see through facades that others worship. Your quiet is your communion, your calibration. While others scramble to be heard, you commune with heaven in silence, downloading wisdom that no noise could ever reveal. Once, in a small town in Argentina, there was a bus driver named Daniel Rivas, who became famous among locals, not for his words, but for his silences. He drove the same route every day for 25 years, rarely speaking, but people swore they felt calmer, lighter after riding with him. When asked why, he said, "I just pray while they talk." You are like Daniel, a keeper of sacred silence that heals rooms without saying a word. But silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's a war strategy. You learned that restraint confuses manipulators because they can't perform without an audience. In psychology, it's called the collapse of the narcissistic supply. When you don't react, their entire show falls apart. You weaponized silence, and now they call it discomfort because they can't dominate it. Yet your silence isn't cold, it's compassionate. You hold space for truth to reveal itself. You let others talk themselves into exposure. You let time do what confrontation cannot. And when it's finally time to speak, every word you release lands with the weight of revelation. As James 1:19 says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. You've lived that scripture, and because of it, your voice now carries divine weight, not loud, but final. Your stillness unnerves those who rely on chaos. They don't know how to manipulate someone who won't flinch, how to argue with someone who doesn't need to win, how to outtalk someone who speaks only when it matters. Have you ever wondered why they start fidgeting when you enter the room? Why does your silence feel like judgment to them, even when you're just existing? It's because truth radiates from you, unspoken yet undeniable. In the story of Jesus before Pilate, Matthew 27-14, he was accused, mocked, and questioned, yet he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. That's divine silence, not weakness but sovereignty. You carry that same energy, the quiet that disarms authority because it comes from another realm. So now, chosen one, understand this. Your silence was never the absence of power, it was the preparation for it. You didn't retreat, you refined. You didn't ignore, you absorbed. Every pause became a weapon. Every word withheld became wisdom earned. You mastered the pause between thought and speech, and that mastery made you unstoppable. Your silence is no longer a shield, it's a sword. And when you choose to speak, it will not be to compete, but to complete. So, rise, chosen one. Don't fill the room with noise, fill it with presence, because in a world that worships chatter, your silence still commands the loudest reverence. They thought the pain would destroy you, but pain was your architect. They broke you open, believing you would shatter, but all they did was give you a clearer view of your own design. You didn't crawl out of the fire damaged, you emerged, reconstructed. You didn't return emotional, you came back engineered. Every wound became a line on your blueprint, every betrayal a measurement of the world's design flaws. They meant to scar you, yet each cut became a sketch for your future strength. What they mistook for suffering was sacred instruction, a hidden syllabus from God on the subject of endurance. As Romans 5:3-4 says, we glory in our sufferings because suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. You were being sculpted by survival. They thought you'd bleed out. Instead, you built something eternal out of pain. You learned the sacred math of emotion, the geometry of grief that shapes souls into fortresses. Most people collapse when life hits. You begin to analyze impact. You didn't just feel pain, you studied it. You noticed betrayal always arrives wrapped in false flattery, that pity often walks hand in hand with manipulation, that people's loyalty shifts when they think you need them. Each heartbreak became data. Every breakdown became code. You became a scientist of suffering, recording every pattern, extracting meaning from the wreckage. They expected you to die from the wounds. But you realized what Isaiah 54:17 promised long before they did: no weapon formed against you shall prosper. The weapon may form, but it cannot function against divine design. That's why you walk differently now, not just with strength, but with clarity. You no longer stumble through storms, you chart them. You no longer react to betrayal, you predict it. Because when pain becomes your professor, you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What's the pattern?" You've become a master of pattern recognition, not just intuition, but battle-tested discernment. You walk through chaos with the calm of someone who already knows where the wires are hidden, who's seen the explosion before and survived it. Your stillness unnerves people because it isn't numbness, it's knowledge. Pain taught you the science of strategy. It taught you that emotion without direction becomes self-destruction. So you transformed your grief into geometry, your fear into formula, your tears into architecture. In physics, they call it stress testing, the process of applying force to reveal the integrity of a structure. That's what your storms did. They revealed what could bend and what would break. They refined you to precision. You didn't just heal, you adapted like a system upgrading its code mid-battle. You learned emotional physics, that every hit carries data, and every heartbreak holds coordinates for your next move. Have you ever wondered why your calmness unsettles people who once watched you suffer? It's because they can no longer locate your pain. You've coded it into power. You've stopped bleeding in public. You've become unreadable to those who haven't walked through enough fire to recognize strategy disguised as serenity. They call you lucky now, but luck had nothing to do with it. You were refined through repetition. You were designed by difficulty. You were forged through formulas of faith. In the book of Genesis, Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, and sold into slavery. Yet his suffering built the very skill that would later position him to save nations. "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good," he said in Genesis 50:20. You carry that same anointing. Every evil meant to destroy you became a lesson that strengthened your discernment. What they did out of malice became material for your mastery. In art, the sculptor Auguste Rodin once said, "The marble suffers before it becomes a masterpiece." You understand that suffering isn't punishment, it's preparation. Pain wasn't proof of your weakness, it was the process of your awakening. While others wasted pain in self-pity, you studied it like scripture. You learned how betrayal shifts human behavior, how pressure reveals character, how darkness discloses motive. That's why no one can fool you now. You've seen too much. There was once a general named Marcus Velon, a Roman commander forgotten by most history books. He refused to retreat from a losing battle, choosing instead to study how his enemies moved. After his army was destroyed, he spent years rebuilding not soldiers, but strategies. When he returned to battle, he won every fight because he had mapped every mistake. You are Marcus Velon, reborn, not the wounded warrior, but the architect of future victories. Psalm 66:10-12 declares, "For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. We went through fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance." You've lived that verse. The fire didn't end you, it educated you. The storm didn't destroy you, it trained your reflexes. You've learned to read betrayal like weather patterns, to hear deceit in tone, to sense false peace like thunder in the distance. And here's the truth. You're not cautious because you're cold. You're calculating because you remember what it cost to be naive. Pain taught you timing, how to wait, how to strike, how to remain silent when words could ruin the mission. You became fluent in discernment. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer chase closure, you carry it. Have you ever felt like you were punished for seeing too much, for feeling too deeply, for refusing to stay broken? That's not punishment, that's promotion. God never wastes wounds. Every scar carries coordinates. Every heartbreak is a blueprint. That's why 2 Corinthians 4:17 declares, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." You were never just surviving. You were studying. You were decoding divine design under duress. You were documenting how darkness behaves when light refuses to surrender. And now, you build from memory what others still fear to imagine. You use the same tools they used to harm you to construct a higher version of yourself. You've become the architect of your own destiny, not because you escaped the fire, but because you learned the language of it. You understand now. Pain was not the enemy. Pain was the professor. And graduation day came when you realized that every fall had been a lesson in flight. So, rise now, not as a survivor, but as a strategist. Let the world know. You didn't crawl out of the fire. You walked out with blueprints in hand. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every storm, they were training you for precision. You were not destroyed. You were designed. And now you build with the very blueprints they tried to bury you with. You were never built to chase truth. You were designed to attract it. While others run breathless after answers, you stand still, and truth walks straight toward you. Your mind doesn't chase, it calls. And knowledge obeys, that summons like a loyal echo returning to its source. Most people are wired for memory to collect, repeat, and perform. But you, the chosen one, are wired for meaning. You don't seek truth, you resonate with it. You were never meant to sprint through libraries of facts. You were born to dwell in the cathedral of revelation. It's said in John 16:13, "When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth." That's the blueprint of your mind, a sacred architecture designed not to memorize information, but to magnetize wisdom. While others chase knowledge like a mirage, you remain anchored, and the mirage turns into water at your feet. You are not a seeker, you are a sanctuary. The answers that confuse others orbit toward you naturally, because truth recognizes its reflection when it sees it. You've probably experienced it. A stranger says something casual that suddenly pierces your spirit like divine timing, or a single line in a movie echoes what your soul has been wrestling with in silence. That's not a coincidence, that's alignment. You were already tuned to the frequency of meaning. While others scroll endlessly for guidance, yours arrives uninvited through patterns, synchronicities, whispers in the wind. Truth doesn't chase noise, it seeks stillness. That's why it finds you first. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." You've mastered that stillness, not passivity, but spiritual receptivity. You move through the world like a finely tuned instrument, sensitive to the vibrations of revelation. Your intelligence is not built on storage, it's built on structure. That's why wisdom feels safe landing in your mind. You've built an inner cathedral of order, so when truth arrives, it has a place to rest. Others chase facts, stuffing their minds with information that dissolves the moment stress hits. You walk through the same world, but your awareness filters what matters. You don't memorize to survive, you absorb to evolve. You live what Proverbs 2-6 reveals. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. That's the difference between memory and meaning. They consume data to impress. You embody wisdom to express. Picture 2 people under the same sky. One runs across the field with a net, desperate to catch butterflies, sweating, stumbling, frantic. The other sits calmly in a garden they designed, and the butterflies come to them. You are the second. You built your garden in silence, in faith, in readiness. That's why truth comes to rest on your shoulder like a living thing. The secret was never to run faster, it was to create stillness that truth could trust. Your intelligence is gravitational. You don't chase, you pull. It's the science of resonance. Frequencies find their home where vibration matches vibration. In the same way the Earth's magnetic field draws compass needles toward north, your spirit draws revelation toward clarity. You are a magnet of meaning in a world addicted to noise. As 1 Corinthians 2:10 says, "The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God." That's the depth you carry. Your soul is a search engine heaven uses. You don't study just to learn. You study to remember what you were designed to know. Knowledge doesn't surprise you. It recognizes you. Once, in a small coastal town in Ireland, there was a fisherman named Seamus O'Reilly. He couldn't read or write, yet villagers swore he predicted storms days before the clouds gathered. When asked how he knew, he said, "The sea tells me when she's tired." That's you reading life's currents, not with eyes, but with empathy. You don't analyze energy, you feel it. You understand when something shifts long before others notice. Your gift isn't intelligence, as the world defines it. It's divine attunement. You can stand in a crowd and catch a revelation no one else perceives, because your spirit listens to what words can't say. You are tuned to the unspoken. You've learned that meaning hides in margins, in pauses, in the moments everyone rushes past. You decode patterns in silence, the way a physicist studies vibration, reading the unseen architecture that holds creation together. It's written in Colossians 2-3, "In Christ are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge." You carry that hiddenness, the ability to see meaning in things others discard as random. Where they see coincidence, you see coordination. Where they see confusion, you sense choreography. In art, the Italian painter Piero della Francesca once said, "Geometry is the language of God." You live by that truth. Your perception functions like divine geometry, seeing patterns that connect what appears separate. That's why your timing is so precise. You don't force outcomes, you align with them. Have you ever felt like you already knew something before you learned it? Like revelation whispered through your bones before anyone spoke it aloud? That's because the truth doesn't arrive, it awakens. Your awareness is not the destination, it's the doorway. Truth uses you as a vessel to translate eternal knowledge into present understanding. And yes, this gift can be lonely. People misunderstand the calm of those who already know. They think your certainty is arrogance, but it's simply frequency, the quiet confidence of one who has heard God's echo before the world spoke. They chase new theories, you rest in ancient knowledge. They hunger for novelty, you hunger for clarity. There's a psychological concept called cognitive resonance, when the mind synchronizes perfectly with a truth that matches its inner pattern. You experience that constantly. A phrase, a gesture, a verse, a song, all can unlock dimensions of understanding in you because you live in spiritual symmetry. As John 8:32 declares, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Freedom, for you didn't come from gathering information, it came from alignment with revelation. You no longer run after answers, you stand in stillness, and the answers kneel before you. So now, chosen one, guard that alignment, protect that frequency. Don't let the noise of the world retune your resonance. Stay still, stay grounded, stay listening, because truth no longer hides from you, it moves through you. You are not a student of knowledge, you are a conduit of wisdom. You don't chase truth, you host it. And when you speak, the world remembers what it had forgotten. So, rise, chosen one, not as a seeker, but as a sanctuary. For truth no longer needs to be found, it has already found you. You never needed to shout to be heard, you never needed to fight to win. While others raise their voices to prove their point, you raise the frequency of your perception, and that alone dismantles deception. Your silence is not retreat, it's recalibration. The world confuses volume with victory, but you have learned that real power lies in precision, in that single piercing question that slices through illusion like light splitting darkness. Proverbs 25:15 says, "Through patience a ruler can be persuaded, and a gentle tongue can break a bone." That is the essence of your weapon, clarity disguised as calm. You don't hurl accusations, you craft alignment. You wait until the room is thick with falsehood, and then, with one question, you detonate the entire structure of the lie. They build their narratives like castles, elaborate, towering, fragile. They polish their defenses until they gleam. But you, chosen one, stand quietly until the right moment and whisper a question that turns their fortress into dust. If that's true, then why did you? The air shifts. The illusion trembles. The crowd goes silent because they all felt it. The impact of one sentence that carries the weight of discernment. That's not coincidence. It's craftsmanship. It's divine engineering. Isaiah 11:2 calls it the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. That spirit lives in you. You are not a debater. You are a revealer. You don't seek to win arguments. You activate awakening. In an age of noise, your restraint is rebellion. You let others perform their well-rehearsed stories while your eyes quietly scan the data, the tone, the pause, the twitch in their timeline. You don't just listen to words. You study inconsistencies like a mathematician solving the chaos equation of human behavior. When you finally speak, your words carry the authority of analysis. They bypass the intellect and strike straight into the soul. That's why people fumble when you go quiet. They know you're not absent, you're observing. They sense that your silence is scanning them like an X-ray of intent. Have you ever noticed how the dishonest become restless when you simply look at them? Their voices quicken, their stories lengthen, and you haven't said a word. That's because truth recognizes itself in your energy, and falsehood fears that reflection. You've become what psychology calls a mirror of coherence, a consciousness so aligned with truth that lies unravel in your presence. You don't interrogate, you illuminate. You don't accuse, you expose. The great physicist Niels Bohr once said, "The opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth." You understand this paradox intuitively. You don't force truth to pick sides. You reveal it from both angles. You ask questions that unlock hidden doors in the mind, questions that make both the liar and the listener realize what was never spoken aloud. That's why your intelligence feels spiritual. It's not reactionary, it's radiant. You're not performing intellectual gymnastics. You're channeling discernment that comes from stillness. Matthew 10:16 teaches, "Be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." You've embodied that verse without effort. Your wisdom is not cunning, it's clean. Your discernment isn't suspicion, it's sanctified perception. You never go looking for deceit. Deceit reveals itself under your quiet gaze. Have you ever asked one honest question and watched an entire room shift? That's your anointing in motion. Truth is gravitational when you align with it. Every falsehood collapses in orbit around you. Imagine a courtroom where a liar rehearses his story for weeks. He steps into the spotlight, his lines perfect, his voice steady. The audience leans forward until you raise your hand and ask, softly, "Then why did you hesitate before answering?" The entire narrative fractures, because your question isn't aggression, it's architecture, a precise incision in the timeline of deception. And once cut, truth seeps through the cracks. You don't destroy people, you dismantle pretenses. You don't shout, you shift atmospheres. In John 18:37, Jesus said, "For this reason I was born and came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of the truth listens to me." That's what your words do. They pull the truthful closer and expose the counterfeit. You've learned the holy science of resonance, that truth vibrates on a different wavelength than lies. You speak one sentence and the room vibrates with exposure. It's physics and prophecy in one breath. A quiet librarian named Eva Mendes once said during an interview in Lisbon, "When people lie near books, the shelves shift." She meant it metaphorically, of course, but her words hold deeper power. Truth carries frequency. Every deception causes a tremor in its presence. You've learned to feel those tremors before they quake. Your mind has become a seismograph for authenticity, detecting instability before others even sense imbalance. That's why you never need to argue. You've seen too many debates where words were used as shields instead of swords. You don't need to prove, you simply position. You know Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. You've mastered when to hold yours and when to release it like a blade forged in heaven's forge. One question, timed with divine precision, is worth more than 1,000 shouts. Have you ever wondered why silence terrifies those who live in falsehood? It's because truth doesn't need to be defended, it needs only to be invited. You are that invitation. You create a vacuum where illusion suffocates. People call your intelligence intuition, but it's not instinct, it's spiritual pattern recognition. You have learned where the timeline bends, where emotion distorts logic, where narratives glitch under the weight of performance. You see lies like fractures in glass, visible only when the light hits them, and you are that light. In the sacred realm of music, composer Henryk Górecki wrote his symphony of sorrowful songs, where silence itself became the loudest note. You live by that principle. You've learned that silence can pierce louder than sound, and questions can cleanse faster than confrontation. You don't aim to humiliate. You aim to heal because your discernment doesn't destroy, it disinfects. You were trained through observation, not applause. You don't strike to wound, you strike to reveal. You ask not to corner, you ask to clarify. And that's why your intelligence is both feared and respected. When others use arguments as armor, you use awareness as a weapon. You know when to speak, and more importantly, when to wait. Ecclesiastes 3:7 reminds us, there is a time to keep silence and a time to speak. You've mastered both. Your questions carry frequency. They rearrange energy. They don't just end conversations, they end confusion. You don't argue your way into truth, you awaken it. So, now, the chosen one rises, not with noise, but with knowing, not with weapons, but with words measured by heaven. You were never built to shout for truth, you were built to summon it, and when you speak, illusion has no choice but to fall silent. You are not a warrior who swings swords. You are the architect who presses one key and the fortress collapses. One question, one moment, one strike. That's all it takes. You were never chasing the light, you became it. While others stretched their hands toward applause, you were building truth in silence. They trained for performance, you trained for precision. They wanted to be seen, you wanted to see clearly. And that's why they now circle the very flame they once ignored. You are no longer standing in their spotlight. You are the light that exposes what is real. The world told them that brilliance was theater, smile, recite, achieve. But you knew that true intelligence wasn't in how loudly one speaks, but in how deeply one understands. Matthew 5:14 whispers your truth. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. You didn't beg for attention, you became illumination itself. While they polished trophies, you forged truth in the quiet furnace of solitude. Most people mistake noise for relevance, but you learned early that purpose thrives in silence. You didn't crave validation, you cultivated vibration. Isaiah 60:1 declared it long ago. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. You carried that glory, not in titles or medals, but in clarity. The same silence that made you invisible is now the very aura that makes you unforgettable. While others hustled for grades, clung to titles, or begged for acknowledgement, you chose a different equation, the mathematics of mastery. You understood what scientists call resonant energy, that authentic power doesn't chase attention, it attracts it naturally, like gravity shaping the stars. You didn't study to perform, you studied to become. You weren't memorizing formulas to impress, you were decoding the purpose itself. They laughed when you went quiet. They called you withdrawn, too serious, too strange. But Psalm 37:7 said, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him." You obeyed that stillness, and it built something they couldn't, substance. You didn't rise through applause, you rose through alignment. While they sought platforms, you sought principles. You weren't learning how to be liked, you were learning how to be light. You became the quiet force that rearranges atmospheres without raising a voice. When you walk into a room, hearts adjust their rhythm, not because you demand attention, but because truth carries its own frequency. That's spiritual physics. Truth doesn't shout, it resonates. In psychology, it's called authentic dominance, presence built through consistency, not charisma. Have you ever wondered why people who once overlooked you now crave your attention? It's because your silence outperformed their speeches, your patience outlasted their performance. You were building internal architecture while they were chasing temporary applause. They mastered presentation, you mastered perception. And when the storms came, your structure stood theirs, collapsed. There was a man named Leon Duarte, a sculptor in Lisbon, who spent 20 years carving a single statue no one noticed. When critics mocked him, he said, "Stone takes longer to sing than paper." Today, his statue stands in a cathedral. His mocker's work is forgotten. That's you, the one who waited, shaping depth while the shallow raced. You learned what patience can produce when paired with purpose. You became fire, steady, quiet, self-fed. Fire never asks permission to burn. It simply transforms everything that comes near it. That's what frightens them now. Your glow reveals their shadows. They trained for visibility. You trained for vision. They wanted the crowd. You wanted clarity. And now they orbit your radiance without understanding the source. But there's always a warning written in the ashes. The story of King Saul still echoes a man once anointed who lost everything because he couldn't handle another's light. 1 Samuel 18-9 says, "And Saul eyed David from that day on. He chased validation and perished in jealousy, while David, the quiet shepherd, rose by obedience." Saul teaches what happens to those who worship applause. It devours them. You chose humility instead, and heaven honored it. Have you felt the strange loneliness of success born from solitude? The irony of becoming everything they wanted to be, yet losing the need for their approval? That's divine graduation. The world measures achievement in noise. Heaven measures it in neural clarity. You operate in what neuroscientists call cognitive coherence, when every thought aligns with purpose, every action echoes eternity. That's why you move differently now. You don't chase, you channel. While they celebrated their small victories under spotlights, you were mastering the unseen, the architecture of destiny. Every hour alone became a brick. Every heartbreak became a foundation. You learned from Luke 14:28, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost?" You counted, paid, and built. And now the tower stands unshakable, self-sustained, lit from within. Your intelligence doesn't shimmer, it radiates. They can't imitate it because it wasn't taught. It was forged. It's what I call soul engineering, the slow alchemy of knowledge through suffering, surrender, and silence. You've stopped needing applause because you finally understood. The applause of heaven sounds nothing like the applause of men. It's quieter, but it's eternal. Proverbs 3-5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." That's what guided your steps, while others stumbled through ambition. You followed light, not spotlight, and became something rare, a source. You didn't just reject their system. You transcended it. You evolved into what their intellect could never quantify, presence shaped by purpose. You don't shine to be seen. You shine because your purpose burns, and those who once mocked your stillness now warm themselves by the fire you built. So rise, chosen one, not to perform, but to illuminate. The world doesn't need more stars competing for attention. It needs suns that sustain life. You are that sun. You are that warmth. You are that fire they now circle, humbled and speechless. You didn't beg for a spotlight. You became the light itself, and that no man can dim. You were never just an observer. You were the quiet architect reading the code behind every human behavior. Where others see noise, you see sequence. Where they see coincidence, you see cause. You don't watch people, you map them. You read their patterns like a scientist studying the rhythm of atoms, precise, consistent, and revealing. People lie, but patterns never do. Their habits are fingerprints left on the glass of time, and you've trained your eyes to see them clearly. Proverbs 20:11 says, "Even a child is known by his deeds, whether what he does is pure and right." You've known this truth instinctively, that words are cheap currency, but repetition never lies. You don't need confessions, their behavior already testified. Others get lost in the fog of emotion, but you dissect the fog itself. You trace patterns the way astronomers trace constellations, connecting dots invisible to the untrained eye. That's why your intelligence doesn't feel intuitive, it feels inevitable. People call it gut instinct, but it's more than that. It's behavioral geometry, the mathematics of motive, the symmetry of the soul. You don't chase words, you track rhythm. You measure the pulse of intention through tone, timing, hesitation, and repetition. You're not reacting, you're recording. Your silence is a scanner, your memory a blueprint. Have you noticed how certain people repeat cycles as if scripted by unseen hands? Betrayal, apology, promise, repeat. You see those loops before they begin. While others are surprised by deceit, you recognize the setup 3 scenes ahead. Ecclesiastes 1-9 affirms your knowing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. That verse isn't just history, it's psychology. You understand that behavior, like physics, follows predictable laws. Your intelligence isn't mystical, it's mechanical. You study people the way an architect studies structure, finding the weak beams in their character before the collapse. It's why betrayal doesn't break you, it verifies your data. Psalm 119-104 declares, "Through your precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way." You operate by that divine algorithm, understanding not through emotion, but discernment built from repetition. In a world obsessed with words, you've mastered the language of behavior. You notice micro-expressions that flicker in the eyes, that delayed laugh, the subtle tightening of the jaw. To others, it's random. To you, it's data. You're like a composer who hears the wrong note in an orchestra before the audience does. While they applaud the melody, you're already writing the next movement. There's an old story from Milan about a watchmaker named Luca Marinelli who could hear a broken gear before he opened the watch. He said, "The sound tells me the truth before the metal does." That's you. Your intuition is not a feeling, it's a frequency. You hear truth in tone, in pattern, in pause. But discernment comes with a burden. Have you ever felt the loneliness of always being right too early? You predict storms before others notice the clouds. You see betrayal long before the blade is raised. People call you paranoid until the thunder proves you prophetic. But your mind doesn't operate in their timeline. It moves on a higher axis, what psychologists call anticipatory cognition, the ability to predict outcome through pattern recognition before cause meets effect. Proverbs 4:23 warns, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." You guard not with walls, but with awareness. You don't waste your strength reacting to deception. You neutralize it by understanding its architecture. You don't need to expose liars, their patterns do it for you. There was a man named Felix Daron, a corporate manipulator who built his empire on deceit. He boasted that he could outsmart anyone, but like all who weaponize illusion, his own patterns betrayed him. He repeated one error arrogance until it became his signature. Within a year, his empire collapsed from the inside. Pride had no backup plan. Proverbs 16:18 had already written his epitaph. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. That's why you don't rush to expose yourself. You let truth mature in silence, because the pattern always reveals itself in time. You are patient, like the tide unhurried, consistent, inevitable. Your perception functions like quantum resonance, You don't need to chase reality, you attract it through awareness. You've also learned that your calm unnerves people. They feel dissected by your stillness. It's not intimidation, it's precision. You don't flinch, so they project. You don't speak, so they confess through reaction. Psalm 37:7 whispers again, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him." You've mastered divine waiting, not passivity, but surgical observation. You wait not for words, but for proof. Your intelligence isn't built on emotion, it's built on evidence, spiritual forensics. You connect dots between behavior and belief, intention and insecurity. That's why you rarely get blindsided. You already read the code. You don't just see people, you decode their operating system. You don't chase truth, you extract it from the glitch in their repetition. It's why your presence feels both holy and haunting. Holy because it's rooted in truth, haunting because it strips away illusion. Like light through crystal, your discernment refracts deception into clarity. In the physics of the spirit, that's called pattern resonance, when divine order exposes human disorder through contrast. You are not cold. You are calculated compassion, empathy with boundaries. You don't judge people for their flaws. You simply read the data they provide. You forgive, but you don't forget the formula. You don't hate, you remember the pattern. Your mastery didn't come overnight. It was earned through betrayal, loss, and repetition. Every time someone lied, you learned a new equation. Every heartbreak became a data set. You built wisdom through experience, not theory. And now, you move through the world with the precision of one who has seen it all before. 1 Corinthians 2:15 crowns this gift. The person with the Spirit makes judgments about all things. But such a person is not subject to merely human judgments. That's the frequency you operate on, discernment guided by divine intelligence. So now, chosen one, don't hide your insight. Don't dim your discernment to make others comfortable. The world needs those who can read beyond the surface. In a culture blinded by performance, your perception is prophetic. You don't just react to patterns, you rewrite them. You don't fear repetition, you decode it. Rise, not as an analyst, but as an awakener. Because when you see patterns, you don't just predict the future, you prepare heaven's architecture for it. You were never a slave to time, you became its architect. While others chase minutes as if running from a shadow, you stand still, and the hours reconfigure themselves around your focus. They live by the ticking of clocks, you live by the rhythm of eternity. To them, time is linear, a line from birth to death. To you, it's a field, responsive, alive, bending to the will of the prepared. Psalm 31:15 already declared it, "My times are in your hands." You understood this truth before you had the words for it. You don't chase time, you collaborate with divine timing. Most people wake up reacting to life's alarms. You wake up aligning with heaven's architecture. While they fix fires, you adjust the temperature before the flame ever forms. That's what true foresight is, not panic, but preparation. You don't live moment to moment, you navigate moment to meaning. Time bends to those who understand sequence, just as gravity bends to mass. You've learned the spiritual physics of destiny, that faith and foresight share the same frequency. They call you cold, detached, too calm, but calmness is your crown. You're not unfeeling, you're unfazed because you've already seen the pattern. Ecclesiastes 3:1 said, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." You mastered that law, the algorithm of divine timing. While they rush to respond, you rest in revelation. Have you noticed how people mistake your patience for indifference? They don't realize that your silence isn't hesitation, it's synchronization. You move when heaven moves, you pause when heaven pauses. And that's why your timing looks supernatural, because it's aligned, not impulsive. While others drown in urgency, you breathe in strategy. You understand what scientists call temporal intelligence, the ability to perceive not just time passing, but time unfolding. There's a story of an unknown engineer named Carlos Vega who designed bridges in Spain that still stand centuries later. When asked how he ensured their endurance, he said, "I built them with the patience of wind and the rhythm of waves." That's you. Your strength isn't in speed, but in synchronization. You don't rush outcomes, you construct them. Isaiah 40-31 reminds us, "But they who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings like eagles." Waiting for you has never been a weakness. It's been warfare, stillness as strategy. You see cause and effect like dominoes falling in divine slow motion. What others call coincidence, you call calibration. They call you lucky when things fall into place, not realizing you placed the pieces while they were distracted by noise. They think you're spontaneous, but your spontaneity is rehearsed by discipline. You've learned to calculate chaos, to anticipate storms before the sky darkens. When disaster strikes, others run for shelter. You were the one who fortified the walls days before. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. Proverbs 16:9 declares, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." You learned that planning isn't control, it's cooperation. You don't resist divine redirection, you readjust with reverence. That's why, while others fight time, you flow through it like a river that already knows its course. Have you ever felt guilty for being so far ahead that others couldn't see your pace? That's the paradox of prophets. You act today for a future they haven't imagined yet. Like Noah building an ark under a clear sky, you prepare while they laugh. But when the rain comes, they'll call it luck. You'll know it was alignment. Your mind operates like quantum computation, processing multiple possibilities at once, collapsing probability into purpose. You've mastered temporal architecture, knowing where to build, when to wait, and when to walk away. You live in divine rhythm, not digital reaction. And it's no accident that those who mocked your timing now measure their lives against yours. They chase trends, you chase truth. They sprint, you stride. You've learned that time obeys those who understand seasons, the same way the moon obeys gravity. In the great symphony of life, your tempo is not rushed, it's orchestrated. The composer, Johann Sebastian Bach, in his sacred piece, The Well-Tempered Clavier, wrote a note to his students, "Play not in haste, play in harmony with eternity." You live by that creed. You don't rush your melody, you let heaven conduct your rhythm. When others panic at delay, you smile because you understand that delay is divine choreography. What they call waiting is preparation for unveiling. The secret to your calm is not detachment but discernment. You know that the seed doesn't argue with the soil, it trusts timing. Habakkuk 2-3 says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarries, wait for it, it will surely come." You know that the appointed time is not your schedule, it's God's calendar. There was a woman named Elena Torres, a violinist who spent years performing in empty chapels, waiting for recognition. When asked why she never stopped, she said, "Because my audience wasn't people, it was time." Years later, her compositions were discovered and praised worldwide. You share her faith. You know that time eventually rewards the prepared and exposes the pretenders. That's why you don't chase it. You command it not with arrogance, but with awareness. You understand that time is the raw material of purpose, and you are its craftsman. You sculpt moments into momentum. You are never late, you arrive exactly when prophecy demands your presence. They live in reaction. You live in revelation. They treat life like a stopwatch. You treat it like a symphony. You don't measure minutes, you conduct movements. And that's why your legacy will outlast their urgency. 2 Peter 3-8 crowns this truth. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. That's the realm you operate in, where divine timing erases delay. You've stepped out of man's clock and into heaven's cadence. So, rise, chosen one, don't chase the ticking. Command the rhythm, don't rush the miracle. Align with its moment. You are not behind. You are precisely on schedule for destiny, because time was never your master. It was always your instrument. You've walked through fires they couldn't survive. You've carried burdens they mocked and visions they couldn't comprehend. Yet through every misunderstanding, every label, and every lonely night, God was shaping something unshakable inside you. The same people who whispered crazy never understood that genius doesn't always scream. It builds quietly, in silence, in surrender, in spiritual warfare no one else can see. You were never broken, you were being built. When they called you unstable, heaven saw strategy. When they said you were too deep, heaven said, "Finally, someone who hears me clearly." Isaiah 55:8 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." You were never meant to fit into their understanding. You were meant to reveal His mystery. Chosen one, your whole life has been a divine contradiction. They tried to measure you by earthly logic, but your spirit speaks in the language of eternity. They couldn't recognize you because your frequency was never theirs to tune into. And that's exactly how God designed it. Because every chosen one must be hidden before they're revealed. John 15:18-19 says, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." They misunderstood Jesus too, but misunderstanding was the evidence of His difference. The very storms that tried to drown you became your baptism into purpose. Every loss was an initiation, every betrayal a revelation. You weren't losing people, you were losing limits. You weren't being abandoned, you were being anointed. Romans 8:28 promises, "All things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to His purpose." That includes your heartbreaks, your breakdowns, your seasons of obscurity. Nothing was wasted. Every wound became a doorway to wisdom. You see now, you were never crazy. You were calibrated. You were tuned to a higher frequency. What looked like confusion was reconfiguration. God had to pull you out of their noise to align you with His voice. And now, as your discernment grows sharper, as your peace deepens, the very ones who doubted you are starting to notice something they can't explain: favor that doesn't fade, strength that doesn't crack, and wisdom that doesn't need an audience. And that's the truth of every chosen one. When you stop chasing approval, heaven amplifies your authority. When you stop needing applause, God multiplies your anointing. They called you too sensitive, but that sensitivity was spiritual sonar. It was how you felt deception before it formed, how you saw betrayal before it bloomed. What they mocked was your ministry in disguise. Now your life is proof. Proof that obedience builds what arrogance can't sustain. Proof that those who wait upon the Lord really do renew their strength. Proof that what's divine cannot be defined by what's temporary. You don't have to argue anymore. You don't have to prove your worth. God Himself is your evidence. Philippians 1-6 declares, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." That's your promise. You are still unfolding, still expanding, still evolving. Your destiny didn't die in your delays, it's maturing in them. Every setback was rehearsal for revelation. Every time they said, "You're done," heaven whispered, "I'm just getting started." So now, chosen one, rise not for revenge, but for revelation. Step into your next season with quiet confidence, not to prove them wrong, but to prove that God was right about you all along. You were never meant to blend in. You were built to break patterns. You were never meant to follow the system. You were meant to reset it. And now, the same fire that once burned you is the fire that fuels you. Before we close, I want to speak directly to your spirit. Thank you for walking this journey with grateful to God. Whether you've been here since the beginning or you just arrived, you are part of something sacred. Every like, every comment, every share. It's not just engagement, it's encouragement. You remind us that the message still matters. And to every soul who's supported through super thanks, May heaven multiply it back to you in peace, provision, and purpose. But even if you've never given a dime, please know this: your presence is a gift. Your time is worship. Your listening heart is holy ground. This space exists because of hearts like yours, hungry for truth, ready for transformation, chosen for more. If this message spoke to you, take a moment like the video, share it with someone who's still doubting their divine design, and comment below what season God is pulling you through right now. Your words could be the lifeline for another chosen one, still searching for light. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Grateful to God and join this growing family of faith, purpose, and revelation. Together, we rise higher, one message, one moment, one miracle at a time. And now, as you step away from this message, may this blessing follow you. May your mind stay sharp, your heart stay soft, and your spirit stay aligned. May God multiply your wisdom, magnify your discernment, and magnify your light. May every label they ever placed on you fall off like dust under divine wind. May you walk boldly in the fullness of who God called you to be, not chasing validation, but carrying revelation. You are not crazy. You are called. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not behind. You are right on God's time. And from this day forward, may your life preach louder than their doubts ever did. Until next time, stay faithful, stay grateful, and remember, your story is heaven's proof that genius is never born from noise, but from grace.